All right, it's live. Well, welcome everyone. This is an Android GDG meetup here, Silicon Slopes in Utah County. What we have today is a discussion and some show and tell about MVI architecture. So my name is Michael Stringham, and I have been doing Android development for several years, as well as Java and front end and back end, interspersed with that and prior. Just lots of good technology. It's been fun to learn new Android things as well. And with me today, I have Gisela, who can introduce herself, who has helped create this app, and will show some more things as well. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Gisela.
Mike, just before I do that, I am hearing everything you just said like half a minute ago. And I'm not sure how.
Are you watching YouTube
that.
Live? Maybe turn off YouTube Live somewhere. It could
Sorry,
have some,
everybody.
it'll have some delayed.
I don't see YouTube open anywhere.
That's okay. Perhaps the connection between StreamYard and each of our cameras and screens is a little off. But either way, go ahead, or we'll see if we can figure that out as we go along.
I'm wondering if I should rejoin this.
You could, if you'd like. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
I'm gonna
drop off and come back on. All right, let's try it again in a second. In the meantime, this is the app that we'll be reviewing. Some of the code. This is the build.gradle file. And this class, or this application, will be a showcase of MVI architecture. And it has a fully featured app that Gisela has helped to create. So it'll be a great demonstration, not just theoretically what MVI is, but also a working demo app. All right, so you're joined again. How is that? Is it still delayed a little bit?
Yeah, I'm hearing what you're saying right now, and I'm hearing everything that was said about a minute ago. So it's two flows at the same time, which definitely did not happen when we did a run through of this yesterday.
Okay, well, maybe we can find what the reason is. I mean, typically that's when YouTube Live is running somewhere concurrently. You can hear that echo or that feedback. Or if you can push on with it happening, maybe we'll just go plow through it anyways.
I'll try.
Okay. All right, so we can bring up the slides, or if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then we can go and show the app first. We could start that way.
Okay, I think you just asked me to introduce myself. So my name is Gisela. I've just joined this Google Developer Group. Thank you for allowing me to join. I am fairly new to software development myself. I went to school for music right after high school. Then after I had gotten married and had a couple kids, I went back to school again and got a degree in computer science. And for the last 2.5 years or so, I've been working as an Android developer because Android is very fun for me. Boy, is this weird. While I'm talking, good. I hear myself talking too. I currently work as a consultant for STG, and my current client is Bonneville International, which they own a few different radio stations in some Western states. They have some news radio and some sports radio, and I do the development for their apps for the radio stations.
Very good. Yes, I'm a consultant with STG as well, and my current client is Bose. So there's a lot of good work that comes with having new clients and seeing how code bases can differ between clients. It's very interesting to see how people use this technology. So I'm going to share some slides and we can run through those in a second, but also I have the app running and I will bring that up in an emulator window. All right. So this is the application that Gisela has written. And perhaps you want to describe this app. Would that work? Oh, I think you're muted. Yeah.
Okay, and I think you just asked me to describe the app.
Sure, if you'd like to give an intro.
Sure. Okay, so I was trying to make something pretty darn simple. So there's really 3 different screens that could exist in this app. So what we're looking at right now is basically what you would consider the home page. So when you first open the app, this is hard. We preload. I'm so sorry. I'm just listening to everything I said just like 2 minutes ago. The goal of this simple little app is to load a list of cloud images that we get from Pixabay, which is a free API for searching for images online. Mike has just got into the screen where we can load a bunch of images of clouds. When we click on one, we get taken to a screen with that image where we can give it a caption and just kind of say like, hey, what do I see in the clouds? So we can type in a caption and we can save it. And then after we save it, we go to that initial screen where we can just see our nice little collection of cloud images that have captions.
Yeah. So this demonstrates quite a bit of good work here of interacting with the database. We're creating records. And we can also delete them as well. So there's create, edit, delete, all those good activities inside of here. Yeah, so that's the app. Should we go ahead and do the slides at this point?
Sure thing. And I think I'll just throw in there that the database, I'm using Room for the database and Retrofit for calling the API.
Okay, very good. Okay, I'm going to share the slides now. Application.
I am not normally this brain dead, but I am literally hearing 2 threads of speech at the same time.
All right, the slides are here. Okay, so do you see those, Gisela, the slides? The first slide should be showing.
I do see the slides. Okay. I thought I would begin with some resources that I used to wrap my mind around MVI. It was never my idea to do anything in MVI until I got my current job with Bonneville. The app that I inherited is done in MVI, so back in February, I had to kind of quickly figure out, what is MVI? How does it work? So this slide shows what I think are the most helpful and most kind of thorough discussions and examples of the philosophy of MVI, what it is, why people would use it, how it works.
Okay. All right, let me get to the next slide here.
Thanks, Mike. This is another resource on the list. It's a very good article that I found at proandroiddev.com, and I thought I'd kind of start going into a little bit of detail pulled from this article. In everything that I read and saw, what is emphasized the most is the idea of a unidirectional data flow. And the reason why people would favor a unidirectional data flow really boils down to predictability of state. So being able to control, like when you have a few different asynchronous operations going on at the same time, sometimes you can run into weird bugs, such as showing a loading and an error message at the same time. But with MVI, there is no state that's not already defined by the developer. And the only way to change the state is by triggering what's called an intent. The user is very emphasized in this cycle. That the user who interacts with the app is really responsible for really making anything happen. So this diagram, which I did not make, this was the author's diagram, shows model and view and intent, and also the user as components in this cycle. And she says we can really consider them like functions, where the view outputs input for the user, and the user outputs their intent, which I'm really ignoring my other voice that's talking right now.
So yeah, then the user's intent gets fed into the model, right? That whole flow just continually happens, right?
Yes, and it wouldn't go the other direction. So like the view would not, the fragment, the activities, the view would not have any way to reach back and change the model. And you can kind of think of model as the same as a view state. So the view would only show, its only job is to show what the model dictates. The user's only job is to do something based on what the view shows. The intent's only job is to dictate what the user wants to happen. And the model is kind of embodies also the idea of processing what the user wants and doing whatever business logic is involved, and then reducing that into a new view state that then gets rendered by the view.
Okay, yeah.
I think Mike hasn't seen this slide before today because I just added it today.
Secret slide, yes, it snuck in.
Yet another one. So here's where I full disclosure, even though I work for my job, I'm in MVI all day, but I did not build that app from scratch, the one for my job. I had never actually built one from scratch before. And I was trying to make a demo app that was super simple to really highlight the bare bones philosophy of this MVI cycle. And I leaned heavily on a video course at codingwithmitch.com. Coding with Mitch is a resource that I just discovered back in February.
Yeah, me too.
Mitch Tabian is the producer of the content. He's put out a lot of courses now. Some of them are freely available on his website. Some of them are free on YouTube. And others, such as this course called Model View Intent Architecture, that one requires a paid subscription, but it's completely worth it. This guy's very good at explaining things. So what I chose to do was heavily model or closely model our demo app in the clouds after the demo app that Mitch built for his course. So, oh, there's the slide. At the top of this slide, and we have a link to this in the under this YouTube video, there's a link to our repo with this demo app. So if anyone wants to take a look at this code after this broadcast, that's where to find it. And there's a link to Coding with Mitch's course. And then I also just put a list of some utility classes that are involved in our demo app, which really don't have anything to do with MVI. It's just they were kind of needed to sort of set everything up.
All right, do you see that next slide? Were you ready for a transition, or is that okay?
I was waiting for me to stop talking. Oh boy. Okay, so this slide represents my best rendering of my own mental model of the components of MVI. Let's see, which part would I start with? This is, again, just me trying to break down the bare bones philosophy here that I guess I'll start with intent. So in Android, any Android developer knows we actually have a object that we call an intent that we use to pass data between activities. That is not what this intent is. In MVI, intent really stands for the English word intent of what a person wants. And in this case, the person's the user. So when interacting with an app, a user can have many different intents, but they really boil down to just kind of basic operations like viewing something, refreshing something, saving, editing,
Right.
kind of that little cloud of words that I stuck there. These intents are the things that trigger anything to happen. So an intent gets translated into an action, a desired action. Up in the upper left corner, I have this idea of a reducing and processing kind of phase. Obviously, that's not part of the acronym MVI, but it's just kind of part of the cycle of how an intent gets translated into an action, which then gets reduced into a new view state. And that moves us into model, the model phase in the lower left there. I think of model as kind of synonymous with state, data state, view state. A view state meaning anything that would be rendered on the screen would be represented as some data piece of the view state. And once a new view state has been created, the view who's observing that will observe that there's a new view state that's been created, and the view's only job is to spit out what that model holds. So I went around the circle.
Yeah, I guess for me, I think of that intent. As that intent comes in, that's kind of a signal of a new state change, or possibly a state change in the app. Something different may happen, or a resource may get loaded, or something's going to happen based on that intent that comes in. That's just how I think of it. But right. So we've got a new slide now.
So here's where I'm trying to, again, sort of represent the way that I see this in my mind, and start to bring in a little bit of how I made it happen in code. So really we have a view model. Like, so I have 3 fragments in the app. There's the list of cloud images where we can choose one to caption. And then we have the list of cloud images that are captioned. And then we have a fragment where we can edit a caption on a cloud. Each fragment has its own corresponding view model. And the view model holds the everything that's observable. So so I guess where the view model overlaps with model, the view models each have a property, a view state property, which is live data of a view state, and a data state, which is also live data. And the view, being the fragment, has a handle on that view state and on the data state. Because the fragment has its own property. Well, the fragment has a reference to the view model. So that's how the view is able to observe the view state. And then from the view is where we would trigger a new intent. And in our code, the intent object, we actually call it a state event. So we're switching over to the word event, but it really means like a user event, a user intent, a user event. So the view would dispatch a state event. And again, the view model is observing that. So when the view model detects that there's a new intent, then the view model moves the action along into that processing stage. In our case, we're reaching out to a repository to get either to get a list of clouds or to save a cloud or to delete a cloud. The view model gets the processed data, and the view model creates a new view state. And now we've gone all the way around the cycle again. So where the view or the fragment detects that there's a new view state, and it renders the new view state, and then the user can make a choice of what to do about the new view that got rendered.
right.
I hope I'm making sense. Trying very hard.
And this emphasizes the unidirectional aspect of this architecture, keeping that flow in one direction, so to speak. All right, fresh new slide here.
Fresh. Okay, so I see the new slide. So I want to, again, remind everybody that I closely modeled what this app does after the demo app in Mitch Tabian's course on MVI. So what we're looking at here is that so a new view state can take the form of, for example, an available list of clouds. Yeah, I'll just go with that. So an example of a new view state would be there's a new list of clouds. That is wrapped in something that we call a data state. A data state is an object that can hold a Boolean to say whether data is still loading, or a message in case there's an error message to show, or content, data content, which would be that list of clouds. The reason why there's a data state wrapping that view state is because we don't only show data. We also sometimes want to show whether something's loading or whether there's a message. So besides those three fragments, we also have the main activity, which is also listening to live data. The main activity listens for loading or for a message, and then the fragments listen for data content. So when a view model receives a new data state, which is really a data state with perhaps a new view state, when that view model detects a new data state, it will first let the main activity know. And the main activity is implementing an interface, which I think I called data state listener. So the main activity gets a chance to do something if there's anything to be done. If there's a progress indicator to be shown, a message to be shown, main activity can do it first. And then if there's data content to show, then each fragment knows how to take care of that and respond accordingly. I'm just waiting a moment to let my voice go away from a minute ago. So here I am trying to show an example of this process in motion. So we're starting with the user looking at the choose cloud fragment. So this would be the user looking at a list of cloud images. If the user clicks a cloud image, that is what we consider triggering a state event. And the state event is an object that we call click cloud image. We tell the view model through a function called setStateEvent, we're telling the view model there's a new event. So the view model then handles whatever it's supposed to do with that new intent. In this case, let's see. Okay, so it's observing, I'm reading my own slide. It's observing that a cloud was clicked and it has a handle on the particular cloud that was clicked. So it sets a new, I'm so sorry, everybody. I wrote this app. So when the view model notices that a cloud's been clicked, it's going to update its own data state, view state, with a new live data object. The fragment is observing that new view state. The fragment notices like, oh, the view model's got a new view state now. the fragment passes that new data state to the main activity who's listening, lets it do whatever it needs to do. It probably doesn't need to do anything in this case. The next thing the fragment does is handle that new view state, which the way that it handles it in this case is it navigates to the edit cloud fragment, and it takes that cloud object along with it. Mike, if you can think of any way to say this better, please jump in.
No,
I'm
this is
talking
good.
over myself.
No, this is good. Yeah, I like how it's split between the data and the state of where the app needs to know that there's either something loading or there's actual data to be shown, and it's kind of split up into two different portions, so to speak. So I like that part. Let's see what, yeah, so transitioning to load cloud images. So this is similar, but this is actually hitting a repository, right, in the middle of this flow. So to load cloud images, based on these fragments, if the state being sent back to the model is the desire, the intent is to load and fetch cloud images, then the view model receives that state event and it'll hand it off to the repository. And here you have retrofit being used, correct? To go and load those cloud images from Pixabay, correct? So when they come back,
I think you might have just asked me something.
Oh, that's okay. Plus, we'll see that in the code here in a minute.
Okay.
But the repository will return the images from Pixabay, and those are wrapped into that data state, which is observed in the cloud
in this
fragment.
slide, I just stuck an extra little diagram there in the lower right. That is what I guess if anybody were to fork this code and take a look at it on their own, there is kind of there's a little bit of a zigzag where I would say the fragment first, to use plain language, like the view model, or sorry, the fragments first notices data state before it notices view state. Data state, again, being loading or message. The fragment will pass that data state on to the data state listener to do whatever it wants to do. And then if there's data content, which we call view state, the fragment kind of passes it back to the view model, which it seems a little bit like going backwards. But the idea is that since there is data content, the fragment makes sure that the view state has it, and then the fragment observes that it's there in the view state. So again, this might be understandable if anyone wants to maybe look at this after this presentation. Yeah, might be a little bit of a tangent.
Perhaps there are different ways to do that as MVI becomes more mainstream, possibly. It may evolve as well. So I think this is the last slide. So Gisela, did you want to show your code, or do you want me to bring up my code in Android Studio?
I can share my screen and share the code. Okay. So let me do that. Whoa, is that flickering for you? Yeah, Mike, I think you'll need to do the sharing. It's really not behaving very well for me.
Yeah, that's flickering a little bit.
Yeah, it's flickering a lot for me.
Okay. Let me share this code, application window. All right. So Gisela, can you see that screen as well?
I do see it. I see
right.
Gradle.
Okay, very good. So where should we start? We've got so here's the main activity. And the MVI portions here, we have the on data state change and handling that data state change as it comes through.
Yes, each fragment has a reference to the main activity as implementing the interface data state listener.
Right here. Yep. Okay, so here's the caption clouds fragment. And there's the data state listener.
Maybe Mike, you could open the state package under captioned clouds.
Okay.
And we could take a peek at how we define what kind of intents could possibly happen on that fragment.
So the state event, they've got 3 here, correct?
Mm-hmm. So we've taken the idea of an intent and we're calling it a state event. Typically, when MVI is done in Kotlin, it's the events or intent state events are represented as data classes or objects.
So here's the view state.
The view state is a yes. So anything that could possibly be shown on the view is represented as properties of a data class.
And a caption cloud. I'll just jump into the caption cloud entity since we're there.
Yeah, the captioned cloud is the object that enables the cloud to be saved to the database as an image with a caption.
This is one of the room entities for this app, or perhaps the only one. Yep. The primary entity. Oh, so the view model, we can jump there.
Yeah, so
we get a reference to the repository. Now, we've chosen not to have Dagger2 or Coin or some other dependency injection framework just to keep this light and focused.
To keep me happy.
Yeah. But then we have, here are some of the MVI components, the view state, the state event in reverse order, and the data state as well, and then handling those state events. Yeah. So the state events are the intents that come in and define what state this app will be in, whether it's to fetch something from repository or whatever action it may be. And then I believe the data state first is what comes back and is interpreted. That eventually comes back to the activity where there might be something loading. Yeah. And then when there's changes in the view to show in the UI, the view state would have that data. It has a reference to the caption cloud view state. And so handling those view states, this when expression here, for each state event, it's going to switch between whichever states are possible. So there's either the loading the cloud images, or we've clicked on one, or there's also a none event that we can capture if there's no change. So loading cloud images, that's where we reach out to the repository and make that call to load the clouds, those cloud images. So if we jump into the repository, we have the cloud DAO, which is fetching records from the database. And so when those come back through, all those clouds will be assigned in the data state. And this has the other repository type actions, whether we insert, update, or delete various clouds. Let me jump back to the repository, jump back to the view model. And this has the other repository type actions, whether we insert, update, delete. So what else would you like to showcase here, Gisela? We could jump into the edit cloud fragment for when we're editing a cloud.
Yes. So let's see. So the edit cloud fragment will come into existence only when a cloud has been clicked and sent over to it. So this is a good place to start on activity created. So yeah, as we come into on activity created, there should be a cloud image that's existing in the arguments. So we just go ahead and use with glide, we load that image. And we also set text to the edit text with the caption that came along in the cloud object, caption cloud object. After that, we are subscribing observers. So let's see what the observers are doing. Okay, so we're going to observe the data state of the view model. And when anything happens, the first thing we'll do, let me think. I think we don't need the main activity for this one, right? No, we do. Okay, so we have data state handler. We're calling on data state change. Probably nothing's going to need to happen, but it's just, that's the order of events. So like there's a new data state. First, we let the data state listener know, and then we move on to data state.data question mark. So if there's any data content, then we handle it. So, so the data state content would be a view state. And if the view state is what we've defined as is saved, then we handle is saved by navigating to that home screen with our list of captioned clouds. And if the view state is that the cloud's been deleted, then we also navigate back to the list of captioned clouds.
Yeah.
So it's very explicit what we do.
And the edit cloud, for edit cloud view state event, those are the options that we have. We're either saving or deleting, and they're defined here.
Those are the options.
And then the view state, that's where we define the
Yeah,
is
so this is
saved
kind of
or
a
is
before
deleted.
or after. So the state event would be we want to save it or we want to delete it. And then the view state would be it has been saved, it has been deleted.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, okay.
Since you're on it right now, at the bottom of that fragment, we have the two functions, trigger save captioned cloud event and trigger delete captioned cloud event. This is how the fragment dispatches intents. So in this case, the user would be either tapping the save button or going up to the menu where there's a delete option. So when the user chooses to either save or to delete, that's when we would call the trigger functions. And what they do is they call a function on the view model to set a new state event, set state event. So that's how the intent goes out.
That's part of the state event. Yep. Okay, I think we've already gone through the view model.
If I didn't have my voice running in my ear, I would try to explain how the data state does its thing there. It's using transformations.switch map, and that's kind of the process of listening for a new state event, handling the state event, and ultimately returning live data with a new data state, with new view state.
Yeah. Based on the various state events that are possible. Yep.
Hey, Mike, I see we have a helpful comment from Trudy, because I think she saw my comment that I left in my code saying that I'm new to coroutines.
Oh, right. Yeah, some things we didn't clean up, but those are exercises for the reader, so this is perfect. Yep.
Thank you, Trudy.
Perfect. Yeah, that's why we leave those little Easter eggs sprinkled around the code for those who are watching. Very good. So this is available on GitHub, right, Gisela? This repo?
It is a public repository now.
And I believe we'll have a link, or we do have a link. We have a link to the slides on the YouTube page, which would have a link to the repo inside of it, correct?
Correct. And I guess we could add a link to the repo to the video too. Yeah,
we can do that. Okay, very good. Well, I think that's all. Or what else? Is there anything else you'd like to cover for MVI architecture?
I'll probably think of 1,000 things later, but right now, I don't know. It might be. We might have covered what I can handle covering with the extra voices in my ear.
Now this is good, especially if people who are not familiar or haven't dealt with MVI architecture before. There's a lot here. We've got a fully functioning app, thanks to you. We've got code and slides and so really code that they can fork and they can try on their own. In fact, using the Pixabay, that's probably just open source. There are no credentials needed to call in and access those pictures of the clouds, correct? Anybody could do that.
Yes, I think you're talking about accessing Pixabay.
Yes.
Yeah, if using the app, you should be able to, because the API key is baked into the app, so should be good to go. They do have a hit limit, but I don't think we would reach it ever.
Okay, very good. Well, I appreciate all of your hard work on this, and the slides and the code. And so hopefully this gives people a good introduction, get their feet wet with Android's MVI architecture. And possibly in months or years to come, it's probably going to evolve. And if it sticks around, I'm sure it will evolve. But this is a great way to have a clean app that has that unidirectional data flow and really keeps the state of the app pretty prescriptive, that you know what state is going to be entered into in your app as the user clicks or navigates or performs actions. So those are parts of MVI that I really appreciated. All right, so with that, I think we'll close, and thanks for those who have joined and participated in your comments. And we'll see you next month. All right, thanks,
Yes,
Gisela.
thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.